What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another chance encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building. I'm joined today with Jamie Davis. Jamie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Jamie, because not everybody knows, but today I am actually joined by my very favorite member of the audience. And why is my favorite audience member here? It's because this is a chance encounter where I interview commercial real estate investors. That means deal sponsors, passive investors, buyers, sellers, all that kind of stuff. And you may ask yourself, why are you doing that? And the answer is, if you've ever heard of an off-market deal, that's the type that you're not allowed to publicly discuss. Sometimes it's called a 506B deal. Then you should know that you need documentation of your prior substantive relationship, or else the SEC will get ants in their pants and they might take away your business in the form of rescission. That's a bad thing. So I have people on here and we talk about what's your buy box, what's your contribution to the deal, what sort of relevant experience you have, all that kind of fun stuff. And the benefit to you is you will learn to more effectively communicate on the subject of commercial real estate deals and know how my guest fits into those. But before we get too excited about real estate, Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself? Maybe some of the legalese.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit about myself. I'm an attorney turned real estate investor. So I've worked for big brands like Walmart and Bentonville, and then I was the real estate attorney for AMC Theaters in the Kansas City area. I have 12 doors, so I have more of the smaller units, the fourplexes, the duplexes. And now I am looking to scale and go in the mobile home, so different asset class, mobile home park, and smaller apartments. So anything up to 20 units is what I'm looking to scale to. So I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And the first segment that we always do on this show, it's the five distinct motivations. Before I do that, though, I gotta say, but wait, check your eight. Now, Jamie, I don't know your level of technical acumen, but if you could please humor me for a moment, try to look through the camera and into the user's device, because down there somewhere there should be this big hideous subscribe button, and they really should do something. Like, if you don't want to leave one of those light, okay, it's a stupid joke, but whatever. Anyway, the five distinct motivations. I've now literally interviewed hundreds of different commercial real estate players, and everybody is unique and has their own reason why they're making their acquisitions. And the fact is, though, they fit pretty neatly into these five different categories that I've summarized. So the reason why you need to know the motivations of anybody in this industry is because sometimes the going gets tough and you need to know what's going to keep that person from throwing in the towel, what's going to keep them following through with their commitments. The first distinct motivation is preservation of purchasing power. What on earth is that? Well, there are a couple different types of people who are inside this category. One is the type who is earning enough where every year they're putting some investment into something so that inflation doesn't eat away from the purchasing power of their savings. Of course, there's also the people who are work optional, and so they don't have to work. The real distinguishing feature of both of those groups is they don't have to make deals for deal's sake. They don't have to have a deal going every 10 seconds. And so they're going to be more hesitant. They're going to wait and make sure that they get the steepest discount they can, the screaming hottest deals. And those are the ones that they're going to pull the triggers on, because after all, you're only going to bother if inflation is rearing its ugly head, eating away from the purchasing power of those savings, or if you got that asset crash, you can buy at such a deep discount that you're making money right off the bat. Now, of course, that is not my biggest motivation personally. It is for plenty of people. What describes me a little bit better is trading time directly for wealth. And the background for that is that I'm from the tech industry, which of course is high salary, high wage earner, all that sort of stuff. And that was what I was pursuing for the longest time, as a bigger salary. But starting in 2014, I started working on the tech stack for real estate companies. The guy who I was working for, he was doing 10 single family house transactions every single month like clockwork for years before he hired me. So I knew there was something to real estate, but I didn't make the jump myself until I realized, why am I chasing salary so that I end up in a bigger tax bracket, giving away half in the form of income tax and all of that kind of fun stuff? So it hit me that maybe I was on the wrong side of the right business and I need to pursue deployed capital, aka equity, instead. So that's what I'm getting out of real estate personally. Now, of course, the next reason is especially popular with youngsters. They want to take control of their schedule. They want to hustle like crazy so that they can retire faster. And one thing that people who want to control their schedule or retire tend to think, though, they think that that's secretly everybody's motivation. But I assure you that is not the case. Some people will hustle into their 90s, especially those that are fueled by ambition. They want to buy their entire hometown. They want to make sure that their great grandchildren never have to hold a day job. They're after that legacy, and that's why they're making their acquisitions. Of course, that sort of attitude is vilified in some circles, and I think that that's not exactly fair in our industry in particular, because somebody has to be highly motivated to make sure that the property is maintained sufficiently, taken care of, so that people are happy to continue residing or renting in that property. Now, of course, the other group that's going to hustle into their 90s is not so much for their own legacy. Maybe they've picked a sector of society, or maybe it's the environment, maybe it's animals, but they found out that if they want to make a big impact in society, there's a financial component to it, and that's why they're making their commercial real estate acquisitions these days. So, Jamie, of those 5 different motivations, what combination of them would you say describes you best?
I will definitely say, regarding the lifestyle and the flexibility, when you're working corporate America, like, your schedule is really not your schedule, right? There's going to be times where you're having to work Thanksgiving or Christmas or late nights, and you're going to have to maybe not go to the Beyonce concert because it conflicts with the deadline or closing, right? Like, there's just certain things when you're in corporate America that you really do sometimes have to forgo. And that was, one of the things that I decided that I wanted to really live a better life. I wanted to live a fulfilled life and not just have these shackles called corporate America.
I got to tell you, you hurt me personally there, because I lived in Taiwan for 15 years, and the one time that Beyonce came to Taipei and I was gonna see her, it was like a Wednesday night, and it's like true. It's like when you're in corporate, you can't just like be saying it's like, oh, just Beyonce's in town, right?
Yeah. I mean, there were several times like I missed, like I've never missed Beyonce when I wanted to go. So I've always been able to like finagle like the dates. But there have been times where I, haven't been able to go home for Thanksgiving, right? Due to work. And, I'll tell a personal story if you don't mind.
Sure, go for it.
The reason that I literally decided that I had to do something else besides corporate, during COVID, during COVID, I went and I think at that point I had just turned 34, 35. And as a woman, if you're not married, they tell you like, hey, your eggs, like the egg count, the quality, like, hold on, like you're gonna have to freeze your eggs. So I went ahead and froze my eggs. I didn't, a lot, back then we didn't know what was gonna happen. We didn't know if the world was gonna end, like, but I went ahead and just froze my eggs. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't want to get sick, and then I can't, like, you just didn't know. So I froze my eggs, and the day after the egg retrieval, I woke up sick, and I knew immediately it was COVID, because I had never, ever, ever felt that way. Like, it was like the worst feeling ever in life, like ever. And I woke up, and for 5 days I was in the bed, and I could barely get up. And if I got up to go to the bathroom, I couldn't breathe. Like, literally, if I sat up, I couldn't breathe. So I would have to like run to the bathroom, wash my hands, and lay back down, and then I could breathe. It was the craziest thing. So on the 5th day, I wasn't getting better. And I was like, okay. So I called my boyfriend. I said, come get me, take me to the emergency room. So he takes me to the emergency room, And we walk in, and of course it's packed, right? Like it was so many people in the emergency room. They immediately get like they put the little thing on your finger to take your oxygen, and they rush me to the back. Like people were in the emergency room giving me the death stare because they were like, "How did she cut in front of me?" Right? Well, yeah, I was like dying, like literally. So they rushed me to the back, and I ended up being admitted to the ICU for 6 days. So I was in the ICU for 6 days after literally just freezing my eggs. And I remember the first day I was there having various conversations with close friends, other friends who I've known since law school, and saying, hey, here's where my will is. I didn't want to talk to my parents about it. I didn't want to scare them. So I didn't never told my parents, like, hey, I feel like I'm gonna die. But my body was very weak. So they are driving from Dallas to Kansas City. So they're already a nervous wreck. The daughter's in the ICU. But I'm having these deep conversations in between coughing and barely being able to breathe with my friends of this is where my will and my trust is. This is where this is. And after I got off the phone with one of my good friends, I was like, that's not enough. Like if I die today, this little 401k, that's not enough. And I promised myself then, like, you're gonna live. Like you're gonna fight through this. You're gonna live. And at that point, no one was allowed in the side of the COVID people. Like no one, you couldn't, like no one could come see you. Barely the nurses wanted to be in there with you, right? To be honest, like my nurses were in there and they were out. Like they weren't really playing. They weren't talking to me. They were just giving me my medicine, checking and then they were out, when they had the whole hazmat suits on. And so I was literally there by myself, and I began to look up YouTube videos of ways I could make money and invest. And that is how I decided on buying my first fourplex. Is I said, I'm going to live. I'm going to actually have something whenever I do decide to thaw off these eggs, as I say, right? I want to be able to leave them something, right? Besides this legacy of, oh, my mom was like an attorney, right? Like, and so that is really how I changed my whole life. Is I almost died, right? And so that's why now it's just so important to have that flexibility and to live life to the fullest.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really inspiring story, and it's going to seem a little bit of like a cheesy segue, but I
Yeah.
normally do go over to the tolerance for risk assessment question, which
Yeah.
we were just talking about motivations, and like one thing that frequently happens is people say their motivations, and they sound like all starry-eyed and optimistic and all that sort of thing, whereas
Yeah.
your story it had a lot more reality to it, so that segue isn't
Oh.
quite as forced, I suppose. But I do like to mention the fact that because every single business, real estate or otherwise, has plenty of risks involved, that's why attorneys in general tend to emphasize those risks. Now,
Yeah.
if you've ever been involved in a private deal, one of these off-market 506B deals, then whoever the securities attorney in the mix was, and there really should have been one, they should have
Yeah.
insisted that every investor fills out this suitability questionnaire. It's a highly invasive financial questionnaire about what's your net worth, how much are you making, what sort of assets and experience do you have, and all that sort of thing. And when I was filling out one of those forms for the first time, there was one question that bugged me a little bit because, frankly, it lacked utility. It was the tolerance for risk assessment question, and it didn't matter which of the multiple choice answers you chose. I felt like I couldn't really know for sure what your tolerance for risk was. And so the question that I made up for this interview, for that reason, is a fill in the blanks. It is. There are many popular investment asset classes, but I think blank is too risky. So, Jamie, it can be inside real estate, it can be outside real estate, it can be both, one of each if you want. What's too risky for you to invest in?
So, okay, I will be honest. When I think of what's too risky, I was thinking of kind of going the opposite way, right? And I feel like just staying in your W-2 and not investing is too risky, right? And that's the only thing I could think of, just being honest. Not taking the initiative, not educating yourself, that's too risky, right? And I think, for me, I'm going to have a very different perspective because I literally almost died, right? And I was in that ICU like, oh, And so for me, when I had the forethought of looking up everything and talking to my friends about my portfolio, while some people are like, oh my goodness, Jamie, that's a lot. You've done a lot in your career. You work for these great companies. You have money saved. It really wasn't a lot when I thought about it, right? And so I think it's too risky to think that you can scale the corporate ladder and that retire and you'll be fine. I think it's too risky to think that inflation is not a real thing. I think it's really just too risky to not take that extra time once you leave work to invest in yourself. So I know it's a little different than what probably other people, but I will say you have to invest in something and you have to believe in it and educate yourself. And so I think every asset class is going to be too risky. But for me, what was too risky was not doing something.
I love that answer. The most risky investment is not investing. I
Yeah.
think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, the next question though, it's a little bit technical. For the first couple hundred chance encounters, I didn't include this slide because I thought it was a little bit too fastball for people who are more public relations or marketing or just that sort of front of house sort of job. Whereas somebody who actually does the underwriting, one of the spreadsheet jockeys, the people who really dig into the numbers deeply, this is going to be the most straightforward thing. And honestly, they're going to say it's like, well, they're all important. What are you talking about? But for the people in the audience who are only listening and not watching, I read out this list of 14 different metrics. It's not an exhaustive list, but I think it's not bad and it helps people give like a top three. The fact is we're all curators of deals. We have to choose which
Yep.
ones we pursue and not. So even if you are front of house, you're going to have some of these numbers that you tend to use to vet the deals. The different metrics are, the first one is cash on cash. Next is IRR, which is internal rate of return, which is also sometimes used as an equity multiple. In other words, what's going to happen to your capital as far as what you end up with compared to what you started. Then there's cost per door, the net operating income of the property, the going in cap rate, which is basically a back of the envelope way to find out what sort of discount you're getting, because commercial properties in general, any MSA, any metropolitan, they will publish what the going cap rate is. And so if
Yep.
you are getting a better cap rate than what's typical for that area, you already know you're getting a discount. Next one is the loan interest rate, which is especially important for people who are assuming loans or doing seller financing. There's the occupancy. Keep in mind that the occupancy is the inverse of the vacancy rate, so it's the same number, just inverted. So that's going to be one that some people are interested in. Next one is the average income where the property is located. Then there's the amortization period of the loan, also especially important if you're going to be assuming a loan. Next, there's the difference between the market versus the in-place rents to show what kind of boost to the rents you can charge and still get away with it. Next, there's the population growth where the property is located, because if more population means more demand. Next, there's the sponsor record, which is how many deals are on the go right now, how many deals have already gone full cycle. Next, there's the waterfall split or exit strategy, which is talking about what's going to happen to your investment after it's already been done. You know, are you waiting for the sale, or is it going to be buy and hold? What's going to happen to your investment after your principal's return, that sort of thing. And the last one I have on here is DSCR, which is debt service coverage ratio, which is how much of the revenue from amenities and rents are going out the door immediately just to pay for the loan. And once again, that's not an exhaustive list, so maybe there's something else. But Jamie, do you want to give like a
Yeah.
top three or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, NOI is so important for me. When I'm looking at deals, I'm looking at the value that I can bring to the deal, right? So what can I do? Is it not just pushing the rent, right? I mean, that anyone could do that, but really, what are you adding the value? Are you doing light renovations? Are you streamlining operations? Are you doing a build back, right? Like, what else are you doing to add to that NOI so that you can refinance, pull your money out, right? And just do the play again. And so that to me is one of the most important, just so I can kind of gauge how much work I'm going to have to do, right? What I'm going to have to put in the next 12 to 18 months, right? So the NOI, I think, is really important. I'll look at cap rate, but I will be honest, for me, especially in mobile homes, like the mobile home parks, you're going to look for more of the higher cap rate, right? But, I'll tell you, a lot of times with some of these metrics, I'll look at them, but I don't really depend on them. And the reason why, I'm just a firm believer, and I'll even say with NOI, I really don't like NOI, and I'm gonna tell you why. I like to understand what's my bottom line. I like to see where it really cash flows, because even with your NOI, you still have to subtract, right, your debt. And a lot of times, I don't think people understand NOI. I think they think, oh, all the expenses, so this is my cash flow, and NOI is not your cash flow. And so I just think it's important when you have these metrics and you have these things that people are always talking about on the internet, people really understand what the NOI is, right? And how you use that to really measure whether you're going to do a BRRRR strategy or just heavy renovations. So I always say it's important to understand your business model because let's just say you have smaller deals like myself. Well, you're going to want to know the DSCR because you're going to want to make sure that you can get funded like from a lender, right? That's going to be very important. You're going to want to know, the cost per door because you also want to make sure, right, you're not paying too much cost per door or kind of when you are doing your analysis kind of. So there's so many things that you really look for. I think for me, I like to understand truly what is the NOI, but of course it minus the debt. And then of course I look at the DSCR. So I would say those two. Population growth is really important. I don't ever buy in an area where it is one employer. No, ma'am, right? It needs to be about 20 big boys. And when I say big boys, I mean it needs to be everything from big hospitals, big employers. It just can't be a Home Depot, in a local store 2254 is the biggest, right, employer in that city. That does not work for me because if that Home Depot closes, right, your tenants are pretty much gone. So you want to go somewhere where there's growth. And I don't look at just population growth. I look at poverty rate in the area. I look at the housing, how much are medium household income. I look at how much of the average medium homes being sold for, right? All that kind of plays into, are people going to be interested in this area? Can you rent to this area? Can people afford your rent, or is it easier for them to buy a house, right? These are some things that I look for when I'm purchasing.
I love that. And of course, I'm the kind of party pooper who always, when somebody is talking about, oh yeah, we're gonna have an exit cap rate of whatever, I'm the guy in the back who shouts out, "That's a projection."
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You can never forget. It's nobody has a crystal ball, but that's why I'm eating up that answer like a delicious subscribe. Is that intense enough for
I
you?
love it.
A
I
wonderful
love
subscribe.
it.
Exactly. It's my little reminder that it's time to pull out the Dan Does Deals Commercial Core Competency Cube with the 6 different roles in a commercial real estate deal. I go through all 6 because that way you will understand the teams that are essential for running a commercial real estate deal. And I go through every different side, every one of the responsibilities so that you figure out how my guest fits in as well. And as I'm doing that, if you're thinking, hey, I really need to get me one of those cubes, the great news is it's absolutely free. You can get the PDF from dandoesdeals.com. There's this big conspicuous button. You click on it, it goes straight to the PDF. You print it out, and you can practice with your friends and your family because I like you. That's what I want to give you for free. I committed the cardinal sin of marketing, which is you should always ask for some sort of contact information in return for your freebie. You don't just give stuff away all willy-nilly, but let's get started. The first role I want to talk about is the repositioner role. They are the deal finders. They are the people who are finding the upside, trying to find out how do they make that property make more money than it is right now, and that's going to dictate whether it's a good acquisition for them or not. So they're going to be looking at lots of different properties and doing lots of different paperwork. The most peculiar part of these repositioners, and they are the most public facing people, you're more likely to run into a repositioner than just about anybody else in real estate. But one thing that's a little bit confusing for some people is why do repositioners always hang out with financiers? Okay, they're talking to borrowers, they're talking to investors. You have to have a big network of financiers if you're going to be doing this, and the reason is because it's highly capital intensive. That's one. And then the second reason is because if you can secure cheaper money, aka a more advantageous loan, then that's going to go straight to the profitability of the building, so you've discovered some more upside. Of course, I should emphasize that financiers, they only deal with paperwork, the owners of the property, and capital. They do not deal with any sort of operations or anything like that, but that's why you need to know lots and lots of them if you are in real estate. But the next place a repositioner is going to look to find more upside is they're going to take a look at operations and say, hey, well, where are these Benjamins that are going down these toilets here? That's no good. So they put a stop to that. But of course, there's more to being a GP and being in operations than just collecting rents and mowing lawns and repairing this, that, and the other thing. Me personally, I don't know if you know this about me or not, but I'm from the internet. So that means I have to be able to help remotely. And the ways that I tend to do that, there are a few. I'm a pretty handy guy. I've got an engineering background. And so that, and also I've lived in a gazillion apartments, especially when I was out in Taipei. So I understand what it's like to be a resident. And that contribution is important in a lot of GP teams. But usually when I'm on a GP team, the part that people rely on me for is because you need to understand that vacancy is the deal killer. Vacancy is the enemy. It is what's going to cause the biggest financial problems. So even if you are looking at larger properties like I tend to, 100 units or more, you're going to be outsourcing your property management to a third party company more often than not when that's when you're looking at. And so the question is, well, what do you need somebody from the internet for? Well, if nobody on the GP team has marketing chops, well, if you've got a vacancy rate problem, somebody on the GP team has to step in and get those units filled. And that's one of the big ways that I throw my hat into the ring. But of course, there's only so much you can do with operations in the big scheme of things. So the next place where the repositioner is going to look is to get a contractor team involved to renovate the place, make it nicer, and thereby making it easy to charge a higher amount of rent for the nicer place. Now, of course, if only things were that simple. The fact is, the contractors, they might drag their feet a little bit. They might work on other projects when they should be working on yours. They might use subpar materials. And if you're from the internet like I am, that's a recipe for needing a local. You need boots on the ground. You need somebody who can be there in an hour or two, because categorically that will not be me. I'd still be stuck at an airport in an hour or two. So you need to have somebody who can be there and make sure that the contractors are keeping the schedule and doing things the way they're supposed to, making sure that the operations team, especially if you have a third-party property management that company that you're contracted with, you need to make sure that they're not sloughing photographs and they're actually telling the truth and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's why the local is such an important role. But for the final role of the six here, I like to do a little bit of a hypothetical. So let's say that you're an attorney like Jamie, or you're a physician or an engineer or something like that. Maybe you have some of your own rentals like a duplex or something like that. And you get to thinking, I know how buying a rental works. You get the deposit and you borrow the rest. So you get this idea in your head, say, hey, there's a 350 unit apartment complex down the road. I bet if I turn around to my colleagues and say, hey, let's each throw in like 100K each or something like that, and we can take over that building. So full of confidence, you turn around to the lenders, the financiers, the banks, and say, hey, I want to buy that building. It's tens of millions of dollars. You don't happen to have, say, tens of millions of dollars you want to lend us, do you? Well, they're going to have a little bit of a problem with your story, because you need a KP. You need a sponsor, a deal sponsor. What's that all about? So these lenders, they are in the industry of protecting capital. So they're not going to lend it unless they're pretty sure that you can actually run the business. It's a whole lot of money. If you cannot run it, then you're going to lose all sorts of depositor capital, and it's going to be a big problem. So one of the ways that they protect capital is they make sure that nobody is eligible for a commercial real estate loan unless they already own a similar asset. In other words, if you want to buy a 350 unit apartment complex and get a loan, you need to have somebody who already has a 350 unit apartment complex. On top of that, you need to be able to prove that you have enough money to run the place, and you need collateral, in other words, a balance sheet among the GP team of at least the amount of the loan. But if you got all those pieces, you got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Jamie, you're an attorney, of course, so that means that you're going to be doing some of the repositioning, the asset management, keeping track of what's going on in the business part. You're going to be doing some financier relations with your peers and all that sort of stuff. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. Which pieces of the puzzle do you anticipate being involved in your next deal?
I'm gonna tell you something. I would say a little bit of both that you said, but I also am really big on the operations piece as well. I am very big on the operations. Either will kill a deal, right? Vacancy will definitely kill a deal. We know that for sure. But if you don't know how to operate the deal, if you don't have the contacts to create for the contractors, like you were saying, right, to have someone boots on the ground, that's a part of, in my opinion, operations, of just picking the right people, right? And keeping them accountable. So all of what you said, plus plus that piece for me, I try to stay in, because if you don't, it's really easy to miss some things that can you know it doesn't help you with your business plan, right? And you miss some goals there. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So let's talk about buy box then. When you're
Yes.
asked from another real estate person saying, hey, what you're looking for, what's your ideal
Yep.
property, we're asked for three parts. First one's geography, which state, which
Yep.
county, possibly even which neighborhood it's going to matter. The second one's going to be size. Now, when you're talking about residential, like multifamily, we usually use apartment units, the apartment count or the unit count to define the size. The reason why it's relevant though is because the type of group that's taking over 5 unit, 10 unit apartment complexes, they're going to be fundamentally different from the ones that are taking over 150 unit apartment complexes. Now, of course, some commercial properties don't go by unit counts, like for example, warehousing, they might go by square footage or even acreage, but the size relevance still applies. Now, the third one is usually called class. I'm not crazy about the term because it's definitely more than one thing. I prefer to use the term desirability. The two categories of class or desirability are the condition and the area. If you're talking about condition, it's how beat up is the place, how old is the place, how recently has it been renovated, and then what sort of amenities go along with people when people are renting or leasing that property. You know, is there a pool, a gym, you know, that sort of thing. That's all going to matter. Now, when you're talking about the area, though, the crime rate always matters when it comes to real estate. But if you're talking residential, the quirk of that is the school districts are going to be very important as far as the desirability of that area. And then if you use the old broker trope of location, 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 I think what they really mean is traffic, traffic, traffic. If there's a gazillion people passing by your property every single day, it's going to add to the desirability just on that merit alone. But both the area and the condition are ranked the same way as in grade school. So you've got A plus at the top, and then
Yep.
A, and then A minus, then B plus, and so on. So Jamie, as far as you and your organization goes, where's the sweet spot?
Yes, so Kansas City, whether it is Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, we focus in on the 64111 zip code. So we are very focused in on that KU, it's a KU Med, so it's the hospital and the medical school. And that area is very, very important to us. That's where we are scaling and growing. And we really look at buying C plus properties where we could really push it up to a B plus, right? So it just needed some love. Mom and pop that owned it just either didn't have the time, didn't have the resources to take it to the next level, because you have a lot of medical students, a lot of doctors, nurses that need to be close to their job. They have to be close to the hospital or the medical school, right? And so really looking to provide that housing for them. And so that is my focus area, is that 64111. So it's interesting when you said zip code, because I am laser focused on one area, one zip code. And the reason being is I look for what you just said, traffic. There are cars by there all the time. It's a major area. But also, the hospital just announced, like maybe a couple months ago, they're building a huge cancer facility, right? They're spending millions and millions of dollars. So when you know that there's going to be millions of dollars poured into a specific zip code or area, that's where you want to really literally lean in, right? And you'll start seeing the signs before they announce it, right? You'll start seeing little bit of signs of, okay, something's going on, right? You'll start seeing signs about streets being widened, or now you see a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts going in, right? Once you start seeing some of those signs, that's where I try to get in before the announcement, right? Because once it's announced, it's a lot of those big boys trying to go in there now, right? And so you want to go in before these announcements. So what's important is going to city council meetings, right? If you can't go to the meeting, then reading the minutes. You want to know, where is the city revitalizing, and where do you see movement going? And so that's what I focus in on.
I love it. I love it. And so let's talk about people, since we just spoke about the buy box. Now, of
Yes.
course, this is such a capital intensive business. The fact is, anybody who's involved in real estate is going to be interested in talking to financiers, passive investors, all that sort of stuff. So definitely do reach out if either of us sound interesting as far as a potential investing partner. But the fact is, because everybody in this industry, even though we're seeking investors, we've got our own particular role. The fact is, our skill sets are gonna make it so that we are better suited to help some people more than others. Me
Yes.
personally, because of my tech background, the CRM stack, the full stack developer side of things, and the marketing and podcasting I do, I tend to seek out sponsors and KPs more than anybody else because they've already got a foundation put together, a business put together where I can make a disproportionately large difference. Whereas when
Yeah.
somebody's just starting up, it's a tough
Yeah.
stage in
Yeah.
business. You need people who can put in 60 and 80 hours a week, and that's not going to be me. It's not where I'm making my biggest impact. But Jamie, as far as people who are out in the audience, who are you eager
Yeah.
to reach out to?
Yeah, well, private money lenders for sure are partners, people that are looking to actually partner on deals, right? I have the time, I have the expertise, and I am in the area. And so really looking for that partner that can provide more capital so that I'm able to do what I do best, which is negotiating, which is finding those key partners in the city and really finding those good deals and negotiating, right? So that is what I'm looking for, those private money lenders, and even those partners that are interested in equity partnership as well. That is what I'm looking for sure. Mhm.
I love it. I love it. And so if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, how do I reach out though? Obviously, I've got dandoesdeals.com on the screen, highly visible, where you can see all the other episodes of these chance encounters. The QR code, if you scan that, that goes to my Amazon author page where I've got a few different books on skill building and real estate related
Yeah.
topics. The fact is that the best way to reach out to me though is through social media, through LinkedIn specifically. You'll see down here in the corner, I've got a really distinct last name, so it makes me really easy to find on LinkedIn where I spend most of my time. So that's where people should reach out to me, especially if you want to appear on this podcast, or if you play chess, we can be on Chess with Investors. But Jamie, if people want to reach out
Yeah.
to you, website, email,
Yeah.
social media, how should people reach out?
Yes, so I am on Instagram, Apartments with Jamie. So definitely follow me, Apartments with Jamie. Also, my email is Jamie at Phoenix Equity Investment Group, or you can look at the website phoenixequityinvestmentgroup.com. And I am always, if you want to just DM me, we can kind of message from there. But yes, I am very big on accessibility, so any of those will work for me.
I love it. I love it. And Phoenix is spelled like the Greek way, Phoe. It's not some
Yes,
place. Okay, yeah,
yes,
because
no, yeah.
I've
The
seen
the
others where
Phoenix
they
Rising, the Phoenix Rising.
yeah,
Yes,
bingo,
yes.
bingo. I love it. I love it. And that brings us, it only leaves one more thing, which is the public service announcement that we always do. So, Jamie, this is not for you, it's for you in the audience. If you've been watching this episode and experiencing maybe searing pains in your eyeballs, maybe like migraine like symptoms, I'm confident it's because of the hideous subscribe button that you haven't hit yet. You can hit it for free. It doesn't cost you any. Full disclosure, the reason why I bug people to hit the subscribe button is so those deadbeats at YouTube will actually start paying for these videos instead of me. I think that would be amazing. And the trade-off to you, just so you know, is my videos may show up on your list of suggestions. That's really it. And quite frankly, you can go ahead and ignore those suggestions because I just appreciate the fact you spent this time with me. Just like Jamie, I appreciate you joining me. This has been great.
This has been great, and I do want to say happy birthday
Thank you.
to you. But yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to spend this time with you, especially on your birthday. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey there. Are you interested in commercial real estate deals? Would you like to build your network of investors and deal sponsors? Well, the best thing I can do for you is have you appear on a chance encounter interview as featured on dandoesdeals.com. You may know me from 506 Me or as a top commercial real estate voice on LinkedIn. And if I had to think of the top factors in your success in commercial real estate, my top two would be your network and your ability to effectively explain how deals work with effective communication. The 15-minute chance encounter format It checks both of those boxes, and they ensure that you can share your private deals with me without the SEC calling it a public solicitation. So hop onto LinkedIn. You can see my name is over here, Dan Friedenberg, and search for my name. And the best way to reach me and book that is to message me through LinkedIn. And don't worry, it doesn't matter if you decided to enter this space just last week or 2 weeks ago, or if it was decades ago. It'll be fun and easy to look good. We're just asking multiple choice questions based on your core competencies you look to contribute, your level of sophistication, all that kind of stuff. So I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.